originator, Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, brewing a zero waste program. Mckay will discuss Platinum Zero Waste certification process, program highlights, and closed loop examples within the company. Let's welcome Mandi. Thanks everyone. I'm just going to answer this question first. Yes, there is beer after the reception. I'm just going to clear that now because that's not the first question I usually get. So stay tuned for the happy hour because we'll get beer. So I'm going to start off with just a really brief, quick history of the company if you're not familiar with who we are, and then dive into the zero waste certification process that we went through about 1.5 years ago. We achieved platinum level certification, so I'll talk about how we did that, the different credits, and just kind of give you a rundown of what that entailed. And then I'll finish off with some closed loop examples that I think are pretty fun to talk about. So real quick, Sierra Nevada was founded in 1980 in Chico, California, Northern California. I don't know where Tabora is, but I feel you, girl, wherever you're at. So 1980 by Ken Grossman. We're still privately held by him today, which makes a huge difference in terms of sustainability and what I get to do for the company. But this is where I argue that everything that we've done up to this point started. So Ken is just an environmentalist at heart. He started the company with incredible resourcefulness and efficiency and zero waste and creative reuse and all these things that we're talking about. The first brewing equipment was recycled dairy equipment, you know, things like that that are just really kind of homegrown, and that's who we are as a company. So as we continue to grow, this is our current facility in Chico, those early values stayed true. And so again, everything is built on this very resourceful, very efficient, and really long-term thinking process. Just about 1.5 years ago, we started building our second facility on the East Coast. So this is just outside Asheville, North Carolina. And so this was a big deal for us, but again, even though we're growing and now we're coast to coast, we've really stayed true to kind of those early values. And then again, I'd just like to point out that Ken, he's still the sole owner, but two of his children are taking on leadership roles of this company. And so it kind of gives a whole new perspective to sustainability and generational thinking. I mean, this is something that you have to think long-term for something to be sustainable, and I think Ken has really done that. So that's where we're coming from. We've definitely been a pioneer in the craft brew industry, as well as the sustainability field. Whole cone hops is what separates us from a lot of other breweries. It's a very traditional way to brew. We're pushing 1,000 employees, so we're getting up there. Again, still privately held. I mentioned the 2 breweries. We've got a pretty impressive energy generation program and a comprehensive recycling and waste diversion program, which I'll get into. So I really want to talk about the specifics of the certification that we went through. So the U.S. Zero Waste Business Council is a newly formed group, as Ruth was just talking about, formed by a lot of people that were in this room at some point, I'm sure. But this is kind of the first third-party certification for businesses trying to, you know, have their efforts recognized in zero waste. We really liked it. We really liked how comprehensive it is. So it's not just looking at how much are you recycling and how much is, you know, what's your diversion rate. It's really looking at all those other, probably more important things that lead to a zero waste program. So upstream management, purchasing, leadership, training, all of those things that, again, I think are really more important than just how much are you putting in the recycle bin. So it is based on ZWIA, so the Zero Waste International Alliance definition. You do have to be at 90% greater or greater diversion to apply for the program. And then again, we just really liked all the things that it's touching on. So I'm going to go through, you know, just quickly several of these and talk about what the brewery did to achieve those and how we ended up at that platinum level. It is loosely based on kind of the LEED format, if you're familiar with that, so credits and points and different areas where you can earn points for that. So the first one is redesign, which again is really important if you just eliminate the waste altogether, so things like zero waste break rooms. That's a pretty obvious one, but we've done a really good job with that. And then this one was interesting, making sure that your recycling and your trash receptacles and your bins, that they're actually sized correctly, that you're not having your trash picked up too much or too little, if that makes sense. So you're kind of conserving fuel and hauling costs as well. So just making sure that your program is actually suited to you. They actually look at that. Reduce, there's a couple things that I threw up here as examples of things we were doing to meet that credit. One was just a water reduction. So this used to be lawn, pulled that out. It's now a decomposed granite space with some native plants and a cool recycled art piece, which shows how far away our North Carolina facility is, how far the torpedo room, which is actually here in Berkeley. You should check that out right here. And then the biggest thing that we've done for reduction, really, is moving to the rail. So I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, we actually installed a rail facility that's about 1.5 miles from the brewery. That way we're able to rail in all of our raw barley malt. So instead of trucking in thousands and thousands of super sacks of barley, we can rail it in, eliminate all those super sacks, really reduce our transportation costs, reduce all the trucks coming into our facility. I forget, I think it was Literati presentation earlier that it's a win-win-win-win-win. Using the rail is an example of that. There's really no downside to that. But we actually had to install our own offloading, a little rail stop in Chico. There's no place for kind of the industrial rail line to stop in Chico. So we had to build our own little Sierra Nevada railroad stop. For reuse, we do participate in a few reusable transportation options. So the biggest one is glass pallets. So all of our glass comes in on reusable plastic pallets. Those get sent back to the manufacturer, and it just keeps going. And then even down to the small things like with employees. So all new employees get a reusable clean canteen, they get a Chico bag. Really just when we're onboarding these new employees, kind of emphasizing to them, this is how we operate as a company and this is how you're expected to be on board and participate as well. This one's just kind of cool, I like to throw it in, but if we have excess packaging for some reason or another, graphics change or it got destroyed or something, we run that through a shredder. It makes kind of this webbed material, and that's how we pack all of our POS materials, our point of sale materials, and we send those out to consumers. So instead of using things like styrofoam peanuts or bubble wrap, we just use old packaging that could then be recycled on the other end. For re-earth or compost, we do have an on-site in-vessel composting system. It's badass, I'm just going to say. You really should come up and check it out. So we actually are composting all pre- and post-consumer food waste from the restaurant. We have a very popular restaurant in Chico. Unfortunately, there is kind of a lot of waste from that. I'm actually working on that because the portions are way too big and all of those things, which I don't have time to talk about right now. But we are composting all of that food waste from break rooms as well, including some spent hops and some spent grain. And 10 to 12 days later, we have compost. That compost then goes out into our field, and we have some on-site agriculture opportunities that I'll talk about in a minute. So we're able to use all that compost on-site.